Episode 1, Antipasto, written by Brian Fuller and Steve Lightfoot, directed by Vincenzo Natali. Welcome to Fate and Circumstance, a Hannibal fan podcast. I am your host, Felix Fanfaron Fern, and these are my co-hosts.
Hello, and welcome to Fate and Circumstance, a Hannibal fan podcast. That was your host, Felix, and I am a co-host, Melisa Suzan.
I'm hoping Shaira is going to do that word for word now as well.
Yeah, go!
Hello, I'm Shaira.
No. You have to do my intro now.
Oh God! I've already forgotten how to do the intro.
I do it every week.
Yeah!
Hello, welcome to this Hannibal podcast. That was your host Felix, and Melissa. I am your host Shaira.
You know what? Close enough.
And I do bad accents.
Which
I won't do it, which isn't allowed on the podcast. Yeah.
Right, so last season we did fan artist shout-outs, which meant that overall we did like at least 26 people. So we got to the point where I started to run out. So instead we're gonna do fan fiction. Specifically, we'll shout out a particular piece of fan fiction, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. We're going to start off shouting out myself because I can.
Yeah, and you should.
But we'll start off with I'm forcing Melissa and Shaira to read excerpts from the pieces of fan fiction.
Yeah. And I'm sadly not allowed to do accents while I read it.
Banned.
Yes.
They will probably remain PG. I mean, we'll see if that changes or not.
I don't mind.
I knew you wouldn't mind. I think Melissa might.
Nah, fuck it.
Right, cool. Well,
New
next
year,
week,
new bitch.
see how it goes. We are an 18-rated podcast. It's fine. We're allowed to.
Yeah.
So, for the first piece, this is Café Noir. So, go ahead, Shaira.
Yes, this is Café Noir from Fanfaron, as Felix has said. Psychiatrist, Hannibal clarified, and he certainly didn't miss the look of disdain that the other man made no attempt to conceal. Not a profession that you're entirely fond of, I take it. It wasn't really a question. There was another one of those false smiles. People who endeavour to worm their way into minds of the vulnerable, rather than assessing their own derisory weaknesses, are terribly boring to me. Hannibal's eyes lit up. It was the most he had heard the man speak, and he was enchanted. Tell me, Will, what weaknesses do those in my profession possess? The barrister's curls bounced as his head rose suddenly, glasses pushed up his nose by a clumsy hand, and oh, there was that eye contact. Who knew that the colour blue could be so blisteringly hot? Flames seemed to radiate from him, little slithers of a deeply contained, seething energy escaping through the cracks of his physique. Narcissism, for one, the man almost hissed the word. And Hannibal's smile turned into a grin. A tendency towards smugness, in spite of ignorance, the common act of mistaking an expensive tutelage for legitimate erudition. Yeah, erudition. Not to mention a complete deficiency in regards to empathy. I love that. That's really cool.
Hell yeah.
I mean, fuck it, we might as well do the really dirty shit anyway. I was a bit steamy, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a bit steamy.
Don't challenge me. So that's an excerpt from Café Noir, which is the Hannibal coffee shop AU. Which is
coffee shop AUs.
It's specifically, I've been told apparently it's the grittiest coffee shop AU, because what makes it an AU is that it's where Will never went to work for the FBI or got into teaching, but he is still an ex-homicide detective. Whereas Hannibal is exactly the same.
Yeah, okay.
Nothing has changed with Hannibal apart from the fact that he's possibly worse.
Oh god.
So I highly recommend my own fanfiction.
I highly recommend Felix's fanfiction.
It's ridiculous. There is also now a completed podfic of it as well, read by DB Mars.
Oh, heck yeah.
Because she's a legend. So there is an audio version.
Legend. Yes.
Now we'll
that's even
move
better.
on. We'll move on to someone much nicer than me now. So, Melissa, would you like to read an excerpt from Archaic Apollo?
Would I like to? Questionable. Can I? Also questionable. No, I'm kidding. Okay, hang on.
I believe in you.
They had brought the sculpture to the shore. Hannibal followed them as though under a spell. The beach stretched wide before him, a sweep of pale sand that seemed to glow beneath the sunlight, each grain catching the light as though it were tiny fragments of gold. The air was thick with salt, the scent so heavy he could taste it on his tongue. It clung to his skin, mingling with the dampness from the sea spray that drifted on the breeze. The waves lapped at the sand, their rhythm slow and mournful, as if they were saying goodbye. When they laid the marble figure upon the shore, it was intact, miraculously so. Not a chip or crack marred its alabaster perfection. No sign of the violence of the ocean remained on its surface. It was unscathed, untouchable, as though the sea itself had chosen to protect it. He lay there, draped in seaweed that clung to him like a second skin. Hannibal's breath caught in his throat. He thought of the Barberini fawn. Without realizing it, Hannibal fell to his knees, the coarse grains of sand pressing sharply into his skin. His entire being was drawn towards the figure before him, and he could not think of anything else.
So that excerpt was from a piece of fan fiction called Archaic Apollo, which is written by Serviday, also known as Bambi on Twitter. I'm going to ask her at some point how the fuck you pronounce her AO3 name, so I don't know.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, another Bambi.
Something
Twins.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, Savide.
Bambi twins. Savide, yeah.
But so that fan fiction I chose specifically, it's one of her more recent pieces. And it's a one-shot, so it's a shortest one-off story, sort of like instead of like multi-chapter. That is specifically about Hannibal falling in love with a statue.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Explicitly.
It was giving a bit of like Twilight-y type, probably
Yeah.
just like glistening, like everything catching light, glittery,
Mm-hmm.
very romantic.
Reading these will probably make me read a lot more Hannibal fan fiction.
You
I think we're
should!
gonna be. I was gonna say, I think as this season goes on, by the end of it, we're gonna be like saying what our read of the week is.
Yeah, I need to read the whole thing.
I will try and convert you the best I can. I highly recommend any of Bambi's works. She's just uploaded an early Valentine's piece, which is like a vampire romance one-shot. She wrote an amazing passenger AU based on two of the HEU characters, which is a ship name called Space Dogs, which I know will make no sense to either of you, but will to other people.
Okay.
She is only 18 years old, and the amount of work that she has powered out on AO3 in only a few months is obscene. She's incredibly good and incredibly talented for her age. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
So yeah, highly recommend checking out Bambi. She's also a very lovely person.
Wow,
Yeah,
what a talent!
The Hannibal fandom talent is so good. That's why I'm glad we're doing fan fiction as well, because some of the writing is batshit good.
Nice.
Including yours.
Mine is weird.
And
Go
amazing.
read the Coffee
I say that.
AU after listening to this podcast, go find it.
Or you can read my current piece of fan fiction I'm working on, where Hannibal kidnaps Will and makes him into a human dog. Anyway, so on to the episode.
Both of them, all of them. Kinky bastards unite.
All of mine are kinky. So on to our normal question of the day for a very first brand new season. What did you think of the episode?
What the fuck?
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, there's parts that I was like, oh, Bedelia's cute. Oh, Hannibal's cute. Oh my fucking
It's
God.
in that dress, like I said.
Yeah.
The outfits this season are so good. A lot of people don't like Hannibal's Italian suits. You'll see some a bit later on that are a little bit more questionable, but I think they're all good, and all of Bedelia's outfits are stunning.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the kind of character that Hannibal is, the way it's set, and the way that he carries himself, his style and everything. Personally, I don't think there's anything that he wouldn't be able to pull off really in terms of his like suits and stuff. I feel like any suit that he wears in any kind of style that looks like it, like even just vaguely fits his character, he's going to be able to pull off. So I think I'm going to be on your side a little bit in the sense of, he just looks good in his suits, because I don't if they're this kind of style, which I honestly think is quite nice, I don't see myself being like, oh, I don't like it. I understand it maybe like it's a change from the previous seasons and what we're used to, and I can maybe get with that in the terms of maybe they don't like the change as well as not liking the suits on him and stuff, or just the suits in general. I definitely understand that, because I think I felt that way with other shows and other anything else of the sort, but I like it.
Yeah, I was in agreement with you as well. I like the Italian suit. It looks good in it. And Bedelia looks amazing in almost everything.
Oh
It's
yeah.
Gillian Anderson. I don't know how Gillian Anderson can look bad.
I don't think she can. I don't think that's actually scientifically possible.
It's
No,
not
it's not, is it?
It's possible, right? Regarding the episode, I felt uncomfortable. I think it's, and I don't know why I felt uncomfortable. I think it's because of how much Hannibal's demeanor has changed in this.
It's very different.
He seems so much more powerful in a
so much more powerful,
way.
intimidating. So much more cruel, and like he's always had the capability of cruelty, but like you see it so outwardly now with the parts of him just in like blatantly torturing Bedelia in subtle ways, and things like that. But we did get introduced to, I know, one of Felix's favorite characters, and I honestly fell in love with Anthony. I forgot his second
Anthony
name.
Dimmond.
Anthony Dimmond straight away as well, because I thought I as a British person, I love the suave British
One of us.
Even if I'm South Asian, and that's me falling in love with a colonizer type, but it's what I like.
Hell yeah. So as I know, I think Melissa spotted it on our first watch, is the first half of this season uses yet Italian course names.
Oh yeah.
You will take credit. So this episode is Antipasto, which is the first course, which is a type of appetizer or hors d'oeuvre. It's usually bite-sized things like cured meats, olives, mushrooms, anchovies, artichoke hearts, cheeses like provolone or mozzarella, pickled meats and vegetables. It can also use pepperoncini, which is a new word, and I had to Google it because I didn't know what it was. It's just hot chili peppers.
Yummy.
But it's a good word.
Yeah, it's a good word.
I am, much like the other seasons, especially season 1, I am getting to learn random words from other languages.
Heck yeah.
And we love being cultured.
Hell yeah.
Heck yeah.
European time, baby. So before I go on to the first talking point, another random little bit of trivia that no one cares about, but I like this weird stuff. Is Hannibal's bike in the script is specifically a Bonneville or Triumph Bonneville, though it doesn't say what model it is specifically. So I tried to look it up and find out exactly what his bike is, and I saw someone on Tumblr thinks they identified the bike used in the show, and it's not a Bonneville, it's a Triumph Thruxton, specifically a 2015 Triumph Thruxton, which is like a more modern but retro style version of the Bonneville. So like made more recently, but meant to look like their older models of bikes.
Okay.
And it's a very pretty bike.
It's
very common, isn't it? Like just modelling after sort of older, more vintage looks.
Yeah, especially with like like particular types of popular car and bike brands, that does seem to be something that happens like every few decades. They'll take an old one and like revamp it.
For sure. I mean, if it's broke, don't fix it.
For our first talking point, speaking of bikes,
Mhm.
Hannibal flouncing off to Paris and weaving through the roads on his motorbike is often referred to by fans as Hannibal's midlife crisis. The script, however, makes note that Hannibal is genuinely happy when he's in Florence, surrounded by all of the beauty that he loves. But as we see at the end, he creates a tableau resembling a giant human heart. So, what do you think? Do you think that Hannibal has recovered from what happened in Mizumono?
No.
No.
Cool.
There's a reason why I don't think that is because people who have gone through some form of trauma can go through a stage where they generally feel happy and the emotions and their state of being is generally considered happy and they can consider themselves happy. But at the same time, they could be lying to themselves as a response to that. And I feel like this is exactly how he's handling it. He's feigning happiness in a very not in that he's faking happiness, more feigning it in a way that he's made himself believe that he's happy here, that he's able to move on, whereas he's not necessarily like there is cracks that we see within the episode that way he isn't able to move on, like a lot of people like jumping on the first Will lookalike or something like that, and kind of like being more aggressive than he usually is. So like those are also cracks, and then obviously the big one, the tabloid of the tableau. So not tabloid. The tableau of the heart at the end. So yeah, I don't believe he's fine at all. I think he is, but he is trying to make himself believe he is fine and happy. And generally, I'm glad that he is feeling some happiness, because sometimes faking happiness is better than wallowing in sadness, because sometimes that can help. But eventually, you gotta face those demons.
Mm-hmm. Bestie's heartbroken, man. Look, listen, right? We're gonna have a talk. We're gonna have a journey. Okay. So you get your heart broken. You're sad. The moment happens. You're obviously crying. Sad turns into anger, or both coexisting at the same time. There's a period of sad/anger, sad and anger. You're sad. You're angry. Then you're like, gotta numb the pain. As Tovolo said in her one song. If anyone knows that reference, I love you. Then he was like, fuck it, gonna go, live my life up on holiday. And he seems like he's having a great time. He's like, yeah, fuck it, gonna go with Florence, fuck life, fuck this bitch, fuck my man, he ain't my man anymore, let's go. We're gonna leave, let's go out the country. I've got my thing on the side, catching flights, not really feelings, let's go. He's masking the pain of the heartbreak. Because why did he get like another guy that was very, witty, short brown hair? He misses him. But he's just covering up the pain. He's covering up his heartbreak. He seems happy. You put on a front. You go through the thing of like you're trying to convince yourself that you're happy and that you're over it. But like actually you're still hurting and you're healing. And then that obviously does end up being like true happiness. But this ain't no ordinary person, right? We already obviously know that. He's just having his like now he's like, oh, I'm on my revenge arc. Do you know what I mean? Like, so he's like a badder. He's just a badder babe. Like he's like in his era where he's like, fuck it, like I'm bad, I'm sexy, I know what I'm doing, I'm going like 10 times harder than I usually do. Take that. And that's where he's at now. Like he's trying to heal himself. He's still hurting, but he's using that pain to come off like extra sexy, extra bad, extra, I'm working on it. And that's why he's got new suits. That's why he's showing his true self that was always there. But it's just how he's coping. He's become like his like Shaira said, his demeanor has changed. So I think it was always there. It's just he's like, fuck it. Like, and just really showing it now. And like, I feel like we always knew that this was in the back of him. Like we couldn't like always see it. It didn't always come out. But now he's like, fucking, he ripped his schlong out and he's just doof on the table now. He's just like, fuck it, I'm putting my dick out. I don't care anymore. I got my heart broken. What do I need to care about anymore? Fucking nothing. So he's just showing his bare back to the world, and he's like, this is me. And that's my analysis.
Yeah,
Thank you.
completely agree with both of you. Unsurprisingly, is he happy? In a way, probably, yeah. He's in Florence. We can tell he's been to Italy before. We know because he's mentioned the Norman Chapel in Palermo, which we see at the end. Because there's like a vague little glimpse of a certain something on the floor. So we know he's been to Italy. He can speak Italian. He obviously fucking loves Dante. His job is he gives lectures on Dante, but otherwise he's a curator of torture instruments. It is quite possibly, yeah, it's the most Hannibal thing he could possibly do. So he's surrounded by things he loves. But that's not going to change anything. Nothing will change how incredibly fucking heartbroken he looked at the end of Mizumono.
Heartbroken.
When we see the flashback of him speaking with Bedelia, and she asks if Will Graham survived, he can't even answer that. One, I don't think we know if he knows, but also whether he knew or not, he can't say, because I think he can't talk about Will, which I think is a very
clear sign. He gets all choked up, he can't, he's not moved on yet.
Yeah, and I think once he's in Florence, that's probably the same. I think he is doing all of these lovely, happy things to try and cover up for the fact that he is absolutely fucking miserable. And that's what happens. If you gut the man you love, you're probably not going to feel great.
Yeah, you know, when you completely like slash open his stomach and then do some like dirty dancing, go out into the rain and just, you know, slow-mo, wipe it off your face and then just walk out. Like, of course you're going to be fucking heartbroken, man.
Once again, the actions of his own consequences. No, the consequences of his actions. That's the one.
Yeah. That's the one.
Harold.
I have various weird little bits of trivia I'll insert in between talking points this episode. So some of it's trivia, some of it's me just pointing things out because it's fun. This episode, yeah, like some of the direction in this episode was kind of different, and one of the things I like about this episode that some people really don't like, which I think is quite funny, is that it employs a fun new little detail called fourth wall breaking.
We love a fourth wall break.
I think it's great. It comes out of nowhere. So he does the 3 bonsoirs at the start. He says bonsoir to Roman Fell once. He says bonsoir to Roman Fell again. Then he says bonsoir to Lydia Fell, but he says it directly at the camera. So we get our own little bonsoir. Yeah. And then in the Gideon flashback, when he says, let it be a fairy tale, then once upon a time, again, he's talking to the camera. And also the direction they use in the very last flashback is both Gideon and him speaking directly to each other, looking at the camera. So that also is a little bit fourth wall breaking. So when Gideon is like, what is it going to be like when this happens to you? It also feels a little bit like Gideon saying that to the audience, which is weird and really fun. So I love the direction in this episode because it's very different. And all over the place, because we've got the colourful flashbacks with Bedelia, the black and white flashbacks with Gideon, which are shot differently, like they're shot completely differently to all of the other dinner scenes we've seen at Hannibal's dinner table before. And then we've got all the beautiful wide shots of the dancing and all sorts. It is a little bit fairy tale-ish in places, and I love that. Food for this episode is, I'm going to go through it very quickly, because although there are a lot of meals and things eaten in this episode, nothing super elaborate or detailed. So the first meal of this episode is Dr. Fell's liver. Quite simple. The second is Gideon's leg, which is the candied. It's pork. Yeah, it's pork belly that they've glued together with meat glue, transglutaminase, which I mentioned in. I can't remember why, but I mentioned that in an episode of season 2 and was surprised that they didn't use it in the show. Turns out they did. They used it for this episode. So they glued all the pork belly together to make his thigh. The third meal and also fourth meal is snails, because we see, snails and oysters and acorns and masala, which is what Bedelia is eating. Anthony Dimmond and Hannibal are actually eating different meats, but we don't really see what they're eating or find out what it is. But they're all eating snails, and Gideon eats snails. And that's all the food of this episode. I did try to find out more on the oysters, acorns, and masala or sweet wines Roman thing, ancient Rome thing of making food taste better, but I couldn't find anything to actually confirm that. But it's still really cool. I love that little detail in this episode. So, in this episode, we got introduced to the love of my life, Anthony Dimmond. Man only wanted a threesome. Some people call him Walmart Will Graham, and there's a general fan consensus, as you've both spoken about, that Hannibal latched onto the nearest guy with dark curls because he misses the man he stabbed. So what did you think of Anthony Dimmond and his demise?
I thought it was fun. I thought it would have been nice to see him a little bit more, bless him.
Smash.
Yeah, it was alright.
Hell yeah! I had to drink, it took me a second.
He was cute. He was really cute. But maybe he was cute at the Will. No, actually, I think he was cute at the Will.
He's different because Will is like cute but antisocial, whereas Anthony's incredibly out there and charming. He's kind of like the anti-Will.
Yeah, it's like his alter ego or like his evil twin brother.
Yeah, I think that's why I find him so attractive, because like I'm an anxious mess as well. I need someone a bit more grounded and a bit more outgoing to help me out. So having a Will type with me would be the worst.
Yeah, I can see that for myself as well. Yeah, it's like I love Will Graham, but together that'd be fucking awful.
Yeah. Oh.
I love Anthony Dimmond. He's played by Tom Wisdom, who was at Red Dragon Con 6 last year.
Right, yeah.
And people were telling him the Walmart Will thing, and apparently he found that hilarious. And in general, so I've spoken to a lot of people who have met him, and I've never heard a bad word. Everyone has a good story to tell about him, which makes me love Anthony Dimmond even more. But justice for Anthony Dimmond. All he wanted was a threesome, and he should have gotten one, in my opinion.
Like at least suck his willy a little bit before he goes. Do you know what I mean? Like, just give him like one last little
casual
pump,
hand
and
job.
Then he can
go.
Goodbye hand job.
Just give us a little bit of gay sex.
Give him sloppy top at least.
Just give us a little bit of gay sex. Come on.
Just give him a bit of top. It's fine.
At least, although it's not written necessarily, actually no, some of the lines are. I was gonna say it's not necessarily written to be flirtatious, but some of the lines 100% are. But that's the most flirtatious towards a man we've seen Hannibal, because he's him and Will have such a weird, tense, complex relationship going on, whereas this was just outright flirting, which it's just really nice to watch.
Lust, and with it Will it was love,
pretty much.
It was. I really enjoyed it. And also a bunch of, there was really funny places where Hannibal made faces, and that was just so really funny and really enjoyable to me. It was like
he's super smiley and cute with Anthony, and I know I've mentioned this, but the moment during the dinner with is it that kind of party line, the fact that Hannibal looks at Bedelia first for permission kills me. It's so funny.
Given the dynamic that they have, he really doesn't need to. But it's almost he's well, at this, it kind of is he's this is the only area in life that I'm going to go to you for permission.
We have found where Hannibal's lines are when it comes to sexual consent. Murdering people, fine, but consent?
Yeah, consent is
that's
key.
important.
I mean, valid.
Yeah, he's a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy.
I like it.
It's not even cannibalism.
No, it's just being sensible.
Yeah, for it to be cannibalism, it has to be equal. So, which it isn't.
And no one is equal to Hannibal. So
no, I'm Will, God, you human. I eat you like chicken.
Of course, the more fun things to talk about Hannibal and religion in season. We'll get to that. More fun bits of trivia. So, this episode introduced Hannibal's expertise on the works of Dante Alighieri, who wrote Dante's Inferno in 1321, which consists of the Divine Comedy, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. You will not get good Italian pronunciation from me.
Oh,
That book,
Enough.
in case anyone doesn't know, is where we get the concept of the 9 circles of hell. It's basically a self-insert story where Dante writes about himself going through hell, guided by the real-life ancient Roman poet Virgil. And it's in the format of poetry. Sogliato, who is the dickhead trying to make Hannibal prove himself, when he's talking about Dante, calls him a straniero, which means foreigner or stranger. Which it's rude and it's horrible, but I also kind of like it, and I like that Hannibal comes back at him with his Italian, because this is happening to Hannibal in Italy, but everywhere we've seen Hannibal, he's been an immigrant. So this will not have been Hannibal's first rodeo in being called a foreigner.
yeah.
Right.
So I like that he gets to like snap back at him. Another little bit. Oh god, now I have two. No, I have multiple. Am I going to tell you all now? Yeah, fuck it. Let's get all of Dante's Inferno over and done with. So,
Whoop, whoop.
Hannibal recites part of Dante's first sonnet to Sogliato. There are different translations of Dante's Inferno. People argue over which ones are better. I have Dante's Inferno. My version apparently is the not as good translated version. But
no.
It's very pretty, so I don't give a fuck. But I'm going to give you a translation of this part of the sonnet that is less literal and more accessible, in my opinion. I looked around and read a bunch of different translations, but because it's poetry and because it's translated and it's from the fucking 1300s, it doesn't always necessarily make sense. But I found a version that has been written to make sense, if that makes sense. So, what Hannibal says, translated here, and if anyone doesn't like it, they can go fuck themselves, is...
Absolutely.
Love seemed joyful, holding my heart in his hand, while in his arms he had my lady wrapped in a cloth asleep. Then he awoke her, and though she was afraid, he humbly fed her with his heart, which was burning. Then I saw him go away weeping. So basically, love feeds Dante's love, a woman, his own heart. And then he's sad about it and he goes away. In the book, Hannibal has a follow-up to this sonnet that we will hear used in a further episode, so I won't talk about this just yet. But there's little hints here to the idea that Will has ripped out Hannibal's heart, so the question remains as to whether or not that can somehow be rectified. And as I say, in a much later episode, I will tie this back to the later part that Hannibal says from the book, where they rearranged that bit of text into something even more powerful, in my opinion. Hannibal also says, when talking about this sonnet, the eating of the heart is a powerful image. In the movie Red Dragon, when Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal guts Edward Norton's Will Graham, he says to him, "Remarkable boy, I do admire your courage. I think I'll eat your heart." Which is the thing in Red Dragon.
I see.
It's such a good line, and that obviously ties in with Dante's Inferno, which is very good. Now let's get back to talking points away from fucking Dante's Inferno. So, we get to learn a bit more about Bedelia's crime in this episode, and her ongoing loyalty to Hannibal despite her clear fear of him. There's a very scary power imbalance going on in this episode that shows Hannibal to be a lot more blatantly frightening than usual, and how he's not only tailoring Bedelia's diet to let her know that he can kill and eat her at any time, but he also taunts her repeatedly with his violence. What was your reaction to Bedelia and her dynamic with Hannibal in this episode?
Weird.
Scary. Like, it was... That was the part of that was I felt most uncomfortable, just feeling how much uncomfort Bedelia went through just made me feel equally as uncomfortable. I think I literally felt just as uncomfortable as I would around any guy who kind of does that kind of thing. Not to bring up trauma in this episode, but yeah, it was very strange. It just felt, how do I describe it?
Exactly. So weird.
It's quite an indescribable feeling of dread, and I'm guessing that's what Hannibal's trying to do, like almost so Bedelia doesn't think of double crossing him at all. But
Yeah.
it was scary. Like literally,
Mhm.
I kept on trying to make jokes about, oh my god, Hannibal's so cute, but I was really uncomfortable through the whole show. It's the complete switch to what we have seen of the Hannibal. A bit of it felt without empathy. Like Will gave him a sense of empathy that he could use to mask his violent nature. This Hannibal, this season Hannibal, just feels completely void of empathy, of any form of empathy, and that just comes off as very scary to me.
Yes, I think given what we've just witnessed at the end of season 2, there's such a layer of eeriness to it that we've not seen before, as we've been saying, that he seems so much more powerful now. There's definitely a whole new demeanor to him, fueled by the fact that he has had his feelings hurt so badly. And when something like that, someone in that kind of headspace and capacity is hurt and upset, and they're like, okay, fuck everything, we're going to be angry now, that's really scary. And the fact that it's so vague but still so strong in its presence, the way that he is, I think that just adds another layer to the way that we sense how Bedelia is feeling, her facial expressions all the time, and just the fact that when we see her on the plane, we're like, okay, what the fuck is happening now? Because you're kind of in the space of you thought she'd gotten away and she was leaving, and she had been, strict with herself and been like, I don't feel safe, I'm gonna leave, see you later, there's nothing you can do about it. But there clearly is something he can do about it, and it's something that I'm interested in a lot more now. We obviously saw that flashback where Bedelia's arm was in a man. And the only thing I can think of is when we saw the flashback of Hannibal putting the tube down Will's throat to put the ear into his body, wherever. So I'm thinking Hannibal potentially did something, similar to Bedelia, which would make sense. She literally was suddenly just breathing heavily, seeing her arm in there, and just went to pull it out. I don't understand what she would have done in any kind of conscious mind to be able to do that, especially the way that she reacts to Hannibal's actions. So I'm thinking, okay, he's clearly done something, but what is it? There's definitely more layers that we've always thought to their relationship, but it's just so eerie and so weird. And I think the vagueness is just amping up how scary and terrifying it is. So I'm very interested to see more of this story and how that develops. I think that's at the moment what I'm most looking forward to. But yeah, very, very weird relationship. I think it's just so unknown at this point, and I think that's what makes it so scary and creepy.
Yeah, I agree. It's it's interesting. I know I've seen clips from this episode being used on YouTube shows and stuff to give an example of Hannibal being scary. When Hannibal is depicted as a villain, it's normally this episode or this season people use as an example, because he is very different. I think, for me personally, I quite often associate Hannibal with femininity. Not in a gender binary way, but just in a sort of general vibes. To me, there is always something kind of vaguely feminine about Hannibal and his actions and his interests and how he handles himself. Whereas in this episode, he's part of a married unit, he's a husband, and he suddenly feels so masculine. And we're used to him using manipulation as a form of controlling people, whereas in this he's blatant and he's actually very overtly domineering, and that I find very uncomfortable, and it makes him a lot like less likable. Even though there are plenty of moments where he is likable in this episode, overall it's like no, Hannibal actually seems genuinely scary now. And it is weird with Bedelia compared to Bedelia as well. I'm going to mention a couple of bits and bobs kind of to do with their dynamics. So, one thing I just wanted to mention is a line that she says, because to me it's a nice mirror or a callback. In this episode, she says to Hannibal, "I still believe I'm in conscious control of my actions. Given your history, that's a good day." That's very similar to Will in episode 12 of season 2 saying, "Every moment of cogent thought under your psychiatric care is a personal victory." Which I find really interesting. There's also, in the scene where Hannibal is giving the lecture towards the end, you get all of that fun imagery of like Lucifer behind him and his horns like line up with Hannibal's head, giving us the most overt Hannibal is Lucifer comparison we've had so far. But also when he's talking about Judas, there are constant shots on Bedelia's face. And then he says, "I make my own home be my gallows," and it shows Bedelia in the audience. So this constant Hannibal is subtly threatening her in front of people by suggesting that she could be a Judas, don't be a Judas, which is scary. And something that ties in with that is actually there is a scene in this episode that was cut from the show. I don't know if they recorded it or not. But I found it very interesting. I didn't know about it until today, which is in the script. I won't read out the whole scene for you, but in the script, Anthony Dimmond follows Bedelia when he sees her going to Viradal, which is the shop we see her going to a couple of times where she gets the wine and the truffles. He follows her explicitly, like almost like he's stalking her, to be like, "Dinner was lovely. I must confess to a certain abstract curiosity about your husband." And then he mentions that he asked one of the scholars at the Palazzo to point him in the direction of Dr. Fell, and they pointed at Hannibal. At that point, Anthony didn't know that Hannibal was going by Roman Fell's name. So in the script, Anthony finds out before he goes to the lecture where he sees Hannibal. And whilst he's speaking with Bedelia, they have a conversation about it where Anthony is poking her to try and find out what happened to Roman and Lydia Fell. And he's like, "Where are they?" She's like, "I don't know." He says, "Does your husband know?" And she says, "He's not my husband. He's something entirely other." Some of the lines are actually very good. I'll say two of the lines because they're good. He comes back with saying, "The man is curating an exposition of atrocious torture instruments." And Bedelia says, "The essence of the worst of the human spirit is not found in the Iron Maiden or the whetted edge. Elemental ugliness, Mr. Dimmond, is found in the faces of the crowd." And then says, "You're not going to be able to manipulate this," basically. There's a little bit in there about Bluebeard's wife, but they put that in a later episode, so I won't mention that. And he says at the end, "You want to be caught." And Bedelia asks, "Will you help me?" So later in the script, when Hannibal and Anthony have their talk after the lecture, where obviously Anthony was going to find out that Hannibal was pretending to be Dr. Fell because Hannibal literally invited him there. So regardless of the Bedelia thing, he would have found out anyway. But he mentions that he followed Bedelia and refers to her as your wife / not your wife. So later, when Hannibal kills Anthony, Hannibal brings that up. And says, when I find it. So he says, "You say you're observing, but this is participation, Bedelia." In the script, he then says, "Did you know what he would do when you asked him to help you?" And then continues with the line, "I prefer you answer honestly." So in the script, he pushes that death on Bedelia even more to make out that it's her fault that he killed Anthony Dimmond. And that sort of happens in the show, but I like how it happens in the show, but in the script it actually does make a lot more sense.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
He would have killed him anyway. I mean, that's the real harsh reality of the way it happens in the show, is Hannibal sets it up. Hannibal sets up for Anthony to find out who he is, therefore Hannibal sets it up for him to die, and sets it up for to pretend that Bedelia is involved to make her feel even more like she's obligated to stay with him.
Yeah.
But in the script, she does ask for help, and he pins it on her, and is basically just like, then that's your fault that he has died.
Oof.
Yep. I thought you might like to know that. So let's go on to more fun things. We get to see Dr. Abel Gideon again in this episode through some
Do we,
flashbacks.
We see bits of him.
Yeah, we certainly do see plenty of bits of him.
Bits and pieces. Fucking hell.
Some are
Susie
quite nice.
Izzard is a joy to see
Hell yeah.
every single time, and the way she portrayed Abel Gideon, chef's kiss. I love that character. I can't get more anymore. I can't. That's literally one of the questions. Sorry, you carry on.
That's what I'm basically going into. I mean, my talking point is basically Abel Gideon is there. It's the first time we've seen him since he was killed in Dr. Chilton's house. Charming as always and perceptive in the way he recognised Hannibal's fascination for War Graham's. So were you surprised to see him again?
Yes, but
I was.
delightfully surprised.
Hell
yeah. Because as I mentioned earlier, Abel Gideon is delightfully awesome, and I love how interesting he is, but also like as observant as he is as well. He's very observant, and every quip that he makes against Hannibal is just immaculate.
It's so good.
Just immaculate. Like if we go to the favorite quotes, I think my honorable mention pretty much, and I'm doing this a bit earlier. It's just everything that Abel Gideon says. But yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it does. It's fine. I understand the love for him. I'm just a bit like, it's okay. Like, I feel bad for him, and I think it gives context to where we kind of just saw Abel's just like body, literally just his body and nothing else, like no limbs or anything. Like, it kind of does give like a good explanation, backstory to that, I suppose. I think it's a bit weird, and it's very sad. Definitely showing maybe a darker side to Hannibal that was coexisting with everything else that we were seeing. So very interesting sort of POV nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's enjoyable.
It's enjoyable. And
I'm just a bit like neither here nor there about Gideon.
Fine, Melissa's not in the Gideon fan club. It's okay.
Yep,
you have the fan club for every bloody character in the show.
To be fair, I pretty much. No, that's not true. Actually, there's a character I don't like very much, but I can't tell you who that is yet or why.
Okay.
Fine.
I've had to really fucking bite my tongue with it.
I'm not in Mason's fan club.
Oh, that's true. Actually, fuck Mason.
Fuck Mason.
Oh yeah, true. I mean, that's that's an obvious. Nobody's on his side for anything.
Yeah.
You'd worry
like,
about someone
only
if
the
you really like Mason.
Yeah.
I mean, only
great
the
actor.
acting.
Great,
Incredible acting. Really good portrayal of a character, and I think it's always harder to act a character that no one's gonna like and goes against your own morals. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. Very well done. Incredible performance. Probably, might be a hot take. I have no idea. Probably one of the best performances. I feel like. Honestly,
I think in certain scenes I would agree.
Yeah. Definitely. Really one of the best performances, I feel like. But I think as a character, like removing everything else and just the character, I feel like that doesn't count because everyone's against him. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, and I wasn't in Dr. Chilton's fan club until way later.
You both came around, which made me so happy.
I mean, how could you not?
Yeah.
How could you not?
Yeah.
He's such a sassy bitch.
By far, one of my favourite parts of this podcast was hoping you'd both come around at the moment you did. It's just like, yes. Made me so happy.
He's a massive twat, though.
He is. He's a massive twat
because he is a twat. He's a lovable twat.
He's a lovable twat. That's exactly what I kind of feel like with Abel Gideon, but in in a different way.
I don't think he's a level. I think he's just the most charming.
He's very
I know
charming.
he's bad, but
he's so charming. They're just so charming.
you were talking about how like the way he calls out Hannibal is so perceptive and so good.
So
His ending line, it's one of the last lines he says. I don't think it's quite the last one, but he says, "If only that company could be Will Graham."
Yes,
and pointing at Hannibal's loneliness. That's not in the script.
Wow.
I would love to know how that came about, because I know that Susie ad-libs more than any other fucking character. Whenever Abel is in an episode, I know the script is going to vary wildly. Pretty accurate in this one, actually. Susie doesn't go too off script, but as I say, that line is not in it, and it's one of the best because it's the most perceptive line of just like, I fucking see you, Hannibal.
This is why
I know what you are.
And this is why I love Susie Izzard and
so
Abel Gideon in equal measure.
so good. Yeah, I would love to know how that came about. I might annoy Brian Fuller at some point. So, final talking point. Now that we've seen the first episode of season 3, which focuses entirely on Hannibal and Bedelia, would you like to revise or reconsider any of your thoughts regarding whether or not any of the characters survived the events of Mizumono?
No.
Okay.
Yes. But I'm sorry, Melissa, you go ahead. I'll elaborate.
No, sorry, I was going to say, I just remembered that you did a sort of coin flip where you were telling us that all survived or all died, and I think due to accidentally seeing a GIF, I think I know,
I know the fucking
survived.
Shaira seen GIFs.
Yeah, I've seen GIFs as well. But I said earlier that I want Will to die. That's one of the things I'm going to revise now. I don't want Will to die because I want that empathy back that I saw in Hannibal.
You don't want to see Hannibal and Bedelia's POV anymore.
I'm scared of Hannibal, and I want to see empathy back in him, and and I'm sure only Will can do that. And yeah.
So
I think Sorry, I'm my brain.
No, you carry on.
Sorry, both of you. I'm horrible. I will shut up after this. I think the only thing I will say, I think it does make sense that, like I said before, that Abigail and Jack die purely because they literally suffered at the throat. And I think, again, depending on how quickly emergency services arrive, that Will and Alana, fucking hell, I forgot the names for a second, would survive, again, depending how quickly they come. I think theirs is a bit more survivable than the other two, but I wouldn't be surprised if everyone's fucking alive.
I purely want Jack to be alive. 1, for Bella, and 2,
Bella's dying.
Yeah, and 2, if Hannibal doesn't become empathetic again, I want Jack to catch him and give him a whack for me in the face.
Yeah, Team Jack.
Team Jack.
Okay, so we know Will is alive, right? We know Will's alive.
Yeah.
Also, it'd be really weird if he wasn't.
Yeah, it would be very weird.
We know Will is alive.
I did hope that he would be a thought ghost in Hannibal's brain.
That would be cool.
I had kind of forgotten that I saw a GIF of season 3 until you mentioned it the other day. Yeah.
So we know Will is alive. We half think. Wait, we think Jack is dead, but hope Jack isn't dead.
Yes, I believe.
So we think it's likely, but hope he's not. Would that does that work for both of you?
Well, I know. I think he's most likely going to be dead. But
you hope he's not.
I hope he's not. Yeah.
Abigail is dead.
Abigail again. I hope Abigail isn't dead, but
Abigail is dead. Look, I want solid answers for this.
Abigail is dead because there's no way they're going to give us that again.
Abigail just coming back again and again and again.
Yeah.
Abigail is dead. Will is alive. Jack is dead. We hope he's not dead. And then Alana. Melissa thinks Alana is alive. I can't remember if you think she's dead or not, Shaira.
I think he's going to be alive, but I don't care
Ah.
either way.
Alive,
so
yes.
I
So
feel mean.
we're optimistic for Alana and Will, maybe Jack.
Yeah, maybe Jack.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't care about either way. It's still been bad, but I don't care either way if Alana isn't or is.
I mean,
This is what I'm saying. Like it's like I think by logic it makes sense that Will and Alana could survive, and if anyone was to die, it would be Abigail and Jack. But that's just by logic. What I actually think, believe, I don't actually know because I'm scarred and traumatized by the show, so I don't know what to expect anymore. Also,
Yeah.
you said everyone's either alive or dead, so I'm
yeah, but
assuming everyone's
that's
alive.
me. Don't trust fucking everything I say.
I've been gaslit so much by this show that I don't know anymore. I 100%.
Yeah.
The only
Never
reason
trust
I know that Will's alive is because of that gift that I accidentally saw.
Come on, it's a pretty also just like a sensible guess.
Yeah, it's a
It's
sensible guess
also
as well,
just for
yeah.
the whole point of the story. I feel like
Yeah, he's the main
wouldn't have-
character. Yeah,
And I
It
have been
wouldn't
like
have
saying since the
survived.
start that Hanagram is canon.
yeah.
I also think that the show wouldn't have survived to season 3 if Will was killed off.
No,
I don't think it would have
as
worked.
much
I think
as
they
I
would have had to
love
stop it.
Hannibal, people fucking love Will.
Yeah, I
people
think
fucking love
it also
Will,
just wouldn't have it wouldn't have made sense to any story. Like, yes, he's not actually in it now at the moment and we don't see him, but I think I think they would have had to literally stop halfway through. I don't think it would have worked and I don't think it would have been received well.
Yeah, people love Will and people love Hanagram, so it is a sensible guess, you're right.
And again, like, and people love Hannibal as well, but like,
Yeah.
I've observed enough of this fandom to know that Will is the more popular character by far.
Yeah, I get it.
So, I didn't check at the start whether you were ready for this, so I'm just going to assume that you're very professional and great and that you are. Ready for our ending bits?
Yes, I do have my favourite quote and my favourite moment and predictions.
Quotes, please.
Yes. So it's my turn, right? Right. So, as I mentioned earlier, honorable mention goes to everything that that Abel Gideon says, because as you mentioned, it's just all really good. Like the ones that you mentioned. I'm not going to go through every single one, because I didn't write it down. Second honorable mention is it's only cannibal. So my second honorable mention is it's only cannibalism if we're equals, and I give that an honorable mention because it just shows how Hannibal thinks again. That he generally doesn't believe it's cannibalism because he generally believes everyone else is beneath him. So only to him it's only cannibalism if he's eating pretty much someone akin to him, which like could be Will. And yeah, so that would lead me on to my favorite quote, which is the devil has been a yoke on the neck of humanity since we first began to think and dream. I for a much shorter time. I liked it. It was really good. There's no simpler reason than it came out of Hannibal's mouth, and it sounded like he agrees that he is a deity of some sort, and akin to the devil. Yeah. So moving on to you, Melissa.
Favorite quote is one of Shaira's honourable mentions, and it is, "It's only cannibalism if we're equal." I also thought that was very funny. And yeah, exactly as you said, Shaira just shows that he doesn't even think it's cannibalism. So it's just him just thinking like, oh, I'm just doing a fun little hobby. Some people make origami, some people have crocheting, I have eating people. But it's not cannibalism because we're not equal. I'm better than all of you fuckers. Yeah.
He's such a shit.
I know, yeah. Literal shit.
It's, unsurprisingly, most of my favourite quotes are Anthony Timmons quotes.
Oh, what a surprise!
I'll give a special shout out to a Bedelia quote first, just because it's one of the lewdest things we've heard in the series, like or in the show so far, and I love it. Which is, my husband has quite a sophisticated palate. He's very particular about how I taste. Bedelia,
Bedelia, you naughty girl.
so fucking lewd. I didn't need to know that. So then some Anthony Dimon quotes. The first one I put, because it always makes me laugh, is Anthony Dimon telling Hannibal it takes me 6 to 8 months to write one line, and Hannibal goes, why? And he says poetry is hard. In the script, it actually says Dimon stares at Hannibal a moment as if the answer is abundantly clear. Which I love. Yeah, poetry is hard. That's fair. Another of my favourite quotes is in the conversation when him and Hannibal are going amongst the torture instruments. Actually, both of my final 2 favourite quotes are from there. This one just because it's so fucking poetic, which is, what still slaps the clammy flab of our submissive consciousness hard enough to get our attention. Oh, so good. And then my favourite one is the most like provocatively flirtatious thing I think he says, which is, we can twist ourselves into all manner of uncomfortable positions just to maintain appearances, with or without a breaking wheel. So good! Favourite moments?
Right, so my favourite moment is every scene with Anthony Dimon.
Hell yeah!
So, like, I didn't put him as my favourite quotes, because he's every scene with Anthony Dimon was my favourite moments. Honourable mention to, again, Abel Gideon, because I just happily, but like this is Abel Gideon had his limelight, and today is Anthony Dimon's limelight, but especially the scene where he initiates, if it's that kind of party, and Hannibal really wants it to be that kind of party. Perfect scene, so funny.
Yeah.
His face and his turn towards Bedelia, absolutely amazing, immaculate. and Anthony Dimon's face as well, when he's looking between the two, between Bedelia and Hannibal.
I have 2 favourite moments. I'll get the first one out of the way because it's literally what you just said, Shaira. Like, the way, just specifically the way that Hannibal looks at Bedelia is just so fucking funny. Just because it's in that small moment, says everything. It says so much. He's like, I'm down. You want to fuck? And she's like, absolutely not. And he's like, no, okay. It's just really funny. Just the fact that he's just like, well, fuck yeah. I'm in my breakup era. I don't care. Let's shag.
Yeah.
And then the other moment, I'm gonna read my notes as I often do, just verbatim. Dante sonnet, eating the heart, jammy bastard. And what I think I meant by that is just the comment of the heart eating, and I was like, oh, little double entendre, like, you little fucker, you jammy twat. That's all I have to say on it. That's literally just it.
Yeah, I love how he likes to play out in the open. He's such a dick.
I know, yeah.
So, for a clean sweep, my favourite moment is it that kind of party?
Heck yeah!
It has to be. Everything you've both already said.
Yeah.
Anthony being a cheeky little fuck, Hannibal looking at Bedelia, it's perfect. It's just, it is the perfect scene.
Yeah, right? Perfect scene.
It's flawless.
Like, I would 100% be totally uncomfortable and just not, like, fully like the episode if those moments weren't in it, because I'd be like, oh my god, this is such a scary Hannibal.
It helps balance it a lot.
It helps.
It really does.
It a lot. Yeah.
So, give me your predictions.
My predictions. Oh god. Okay, so my prediction. Get ready. No idea.
Right, same.
The first episode is so confusing.
Next episode, this segment of the podcast mysteriously vanishes.
This episode,
I feel like it's hard at the beginning of a new season, though, because you don't know what to do.
Because we have much to go off of.
I have no idea. Obviously, we've been spoiled that Will's going to come back, so Will's going to come back. But if I didn't know that because of the gifts we saw, I'd be like, no idea. I have no idea how this episode is, this season's going to go. Will Will come back? Will Abigail come back? Will Jack come back? Will anyone come back? Is it just going to be a one man Hannibal show where he's just lamenting his previous life? I have no idea how this is going to go.
It's such a sorry, I'm literally just trying to get the brain cogs going. It's just such a heavy question.
I mean, dunno is also a valid answer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to anticipate, and I think there's a lot of things in terms of the whole series that I would like to know. Obviously, is anyone alive from the murder house? Is more on the story of, because I think I wanted it more in season 2, but didn't get it. More of the story between Bedelia and Hannibal. I was wanting that, and I kind of gave up and think, oh, okay, fine, I'm not going to get it. But now we are actually going to see what it is, and especially where Bedelia said in response to Hannibal when he said, "How are you feeling?" She said she feels that she's in conscious control of her actions, which does, again, it was another thing that insinuated that with the flashback before, that he would have manipulated her in similar ways that he did to Will, which is why it makes me think that the way that her whole arm was in that patient's body is probably similar practice to how he shoved a whole pipe down Will's gullet. So that's my thing, and I want to see if that's true or not. That's more of a season thing than next episode. Next episode though, I have no idea. Love to see what what's it called? How they cover up Matey's body, like what he does with it. Yeah, and this is more like things that I want to see rather than predictions, just so that I have something to say.
Wait, whose body? What?
What's it called? Guy that they were going to fuck but didn't?
Oh,
yeah,
well,
that's it.
You see his body at the end. The giant fleshy heart tableau. Surprise!
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Fair. But I meant like how they're going to cover his. I don't know why I said body. More like I want to know how they cover his death. Like how he covers it up. Like what happens, or if anything happens. Because miraculously, nothing seems to come of the fact that someone's just died and disappeared.
That does happen in this show a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
My next episode prediction is that Anthony Dimmond will miraculously come back from the dead because I love him and I miss him.
Aww.
Are you ready for my sign-off?
Woo, yeah.
No. Yes.
I decided to stick with the haiku format because I like it, because they're bad, but I can count syllables. It's the only thing I can do. I can do 5, 7, 5. Yeah.
Fun.
My sign-off is a new point of view, seeing old faces again. Some ghosts should stay dead. Fate and Circumstance is an independent podcast brought to you by Felix Fanfaron Fern, Melisa Suzan, and Shaira Bambi. You can find and follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at HannibalPod. We are fans of the show NBC's Hannibal and do not own the rights to any of the materials discussed, merely appreciators. The music used in this podcast is Tchaikovsky's Op. No. 40 Waltz by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Thanks for listening.